Welcome, heroes and villains, to Fjuke Enterprises YouTube channel. As always, I'm your host Fjuke, and this is part of my conversations with Fjuke, which has become interviews of various types. This is a continuation of my quest to interview all the game masters of tabletop role-playing games that will allow me to interview them. And like always, I will allow my guests to introduce themselves.
Hey everyone, I'm James Sprinkles. I talk about different tabletops on YouTube, and mainly I talk about Cypher System, but I'm branching out and going to talk about others in the future.
So, how did you get into tabletop role-playing games?
Actually, it was through Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and the way we did it is one of my good high school friends, for Christmas, one of his family members bought him the player's handbook for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, and we joked around that we should give it a go, and it took probably 2 years later, we finally decided we would give it a go, and we found like the Adventurers League, like in the store, where they like teach you how to play and do all that. So we did that, and I did that for about 5 years there. So that's how I got into it. So that was only probably about 6 or 7 years ago. But yeah.
You mentioned that you played Dungeons and Dragons and the Cypher system. Have you played other systems as well?
I've also played Pathfinder 2nd edition and the latest Call of Cthulhu, which I think is 7th edition. Don't quote me on that, but I've played very little of both of those, but I'm still playing a game of both of those just quietly. But I am looking to play more in the future. I'm actually looking at the moment, I've got my hands on a Fate core book, and I'm looking at digging into that one and giving that a go shortly.
So, how'd you go from being a player to being a game master?
That's actually a really funny story. So my dungeon master who taught me how to play and everything the first time I ever played, after about 5 games, he literally said, "All right, you played 5 games, now I think you can have a go at running. Here you go," and just gave me a module. Go home, read that, and in 2 weeks I'll get you to run a game. It kind of just threw me in the deep end a little bit, but that was totally like my MO, and I loved it. And pretty much I ran my first game. I'm not sure if you know the Executioner module for like the Barovia season of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but basically it's a small module in Barovia in like Ravenloft, and I had a lot of fun, and I realized I love GMing, and I pretty much after that I rarely played and just went to the forever GM status basically. So yeah.
So, browsing your channel, you seem to enjoy running the Cypher system. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, 100%. It's something that I moved from 5th edition and I went to the Cypher system, and I just fell in love with the narrative focus. I'm very narrative minded, so it just kind of it connected with me. And I am looking at obviously going to other narrative focused games, and I still play Dungeons and Dragons, and I don't hate it or anything. It's just a different style of game, and I prefer Cypher the way I play it. The way I run it is the way I run games is Cypher suits me better, but obviously I still enjoy Dungeons and Dragons and all that as well.
Are there any systems that you refuse to run as a game master?
Not really. Like I'll never refuse to run anything. I'll give everything at least a go, at least twice. I always say twice in case the first time's a bad experience. But I am reluctant to give Pathfinder a try, just purely and simply as I do run a lot of my games on the fly, like I do last minute prepping and just kind of go with the flow. And I feel there's a lot of things to keep track of in Pathfinder for me to be able to do that. And I'm reluctant to give it a go, but I'm going to have to in the future. So I will be doing it, but there's nothing that I will say hard and fast no.
Are there any moments of the players completely surprising you that you would like to discuss today?
Always. My players always surprise me, and I think that's it comes down to because my players are my good friends that I've known for a while, and they always do try and shock me. I think they put effort into doing that, I swear. They must, because it happens all the time. But the other day I was really surprised by one of my characters, one of my players they basically really got attached to one of my NPCs and went through this whole romance arc with them, and then they become this carefree pirate character, and then all of a sudden towards the end of the campaign, we're getting towards the end, and now that they are not so carefree, and they'll do anything to protect this NPC, and I just love that character development, and it just surprises me like how far they've come, and I just think that's amazing.
Are there any moments of everything going according to plan that you would like to discuss today?
Well, that's a really tough one. I obviously I've been thinking about that one for a little while, because I did see you did ask that in your earlier interview today, and it is quite tricky because I don't really plan out a massive session. What I do is I always plan out moments, and I try and see if the players connect those dots. And I did have this secret organization though, and I was slowly dropping hints that the players didn't seem to be really caring about. And then all of a sudden they made the connections, and they connected the dots, and they realized who they were. And as much as they probably found out a little bit too soon, but at the same time, I was pretty happy with it because they made those connections, and I was really happy that I obviously laid the clues well enough for them to make the connections. I was really happy with that, and it was just perfect.
I keep forgetting to ask this question during the interviews, but are there any common house rules that you have?
Any common house rules? Well, in Cypher System, I always common house rule that if you roll a 1, you get experience, where you're not meant to do that. That's just something that I really like. But in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, and pretty much any game I run, I always go with the house rule of the rule of cool. So if a player comes up with something creative, I always want to reward that creative, no matter what the rules tell me. I want to reward creativity because that makes the game fun. And I also, anything that a player wants to do, if that enhances the story or makes the story funny or more exciting or more dramatic, I'm going to allow that, because at the end of the day, if it helps the story, then I'm all for that, even if the rules say no. So that's my basically house rule for all of the systems I play, I think.
As the penultimate question, any advice to your fellow game masters out there?
Yeah, for sure. I would say that make sure that everyone's having fun at your table. Like, fun is the key here. So the rules are obviously guidelines, and we don't have to follow them hard and fast. Like, we can just kind of tweak them a little bit to our rules. And also to keep in mind that the GM is not a god. They're not against the players. We're also just another participant in the story. So the GM is there obviously to maintain the story and help direct it. But at the end of the day, they're just like another player at the table, and you can't let the power go to your head, is what I would say.
Well, is there anything you're part of online and not offline that you would like to shout out?
Not really, but I will give a quick shout out. Just let anyone know who is interested. That if you do check out my YouTube channel, I am looking at covering other systems in the future. I do have a video coming out later this week about how you can use the Cypher System to play in the Avatar: The Last Airbender universe. So that's really exciting stuff there. And I will be doing a video in the future about covering Fate Core. So if you are interested in any of that, definitely come check me out.
For everyone who's made it to the end of the video, or who's just skipped to the end of the video, do all the YouTube things, like, comment, and subscribe, and go check out GM Sprinkles.
Thank you very much.